Easy English audiobook.
Snow White. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a kind queen who wished for a child. One cold winter day, she sat by her window, which had a black frame. She pricked her finger with a needle, and 3 drops of blood fell on the white snow outside. She looked at the blood on the snow and said softly, "I wish I had a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony." Soon after, the queen's wish came true, and she had a baby girl. She named her Snow White. The baby had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony wood. The queen loved Snow White very much, but she became very ill and sadly passed away. The king was heartbroken, but after some time he married again. The new queen was very beautiful, but she was also very vain and cruel. She had a magic mirror. Every day, the new queen would look into her magic mirror and ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror would always reply, "You are the fairest of them all, my queen." This made the queen very happy because she wanted to be the most beautiful woman in the kingdom. As Snow White grew up, she became more beautiful each day. Her beauty shone like the sun, and everyone in the kingdom admired her. One day, when the queen asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" the mirror replied, "Snow White is the fairest of them all." The queen's face turned red with anger and jealousy. She could not stand the thought that Snow White was more beautiful than her. She paced back and forth, plotting her next move. The queen called a huntsman to her private chambers and said in a cold voice, "Take Snow White into the deepest part of the forest and kill her. Bring me her heart as proof that she is gone." The huntsman was shocked and saddened by the queen's command because he liked Snow White and knew she was kind and innocent. But he feared the queen and agreed to her cruel order. The next morning, the huntsman took Snow White into the forest. As they walked deeper into the woods, Snow White noticed the huntsman looking very sad. "Why are we going so far into the forest?" she asked, her eyes full of innocence. The huntsman sighed deeply and said, "I cannot do it. Run away, Snow White. Run far away and never return to the castle. I will bring the queen a deer's heart instead." Tears filled Snow White's eyes as she realized the danger she was in. She hugged the huntsman and said, "Thank you for sparing my life." Then she ran and ran, deeper into the forest without looking back. Snow White ran until she was completely exhausted. She stumbled upon a small cottage nestled among the trees. She knocked on the door, but no one answered. Slowly, she opened the door and peered inside. The cottage was neat and cozy, with 7 small beds, 7 small chairs, and 7 small plates on the table. "Hello, is anyone home?" she called out, but there was no reply. Snow White was very tired and hungry. She ate a little bit of food from each plate and drank a little water from each cup. Then she lay down on one of the small beds and fell fast asleep. As the sun set, 7 dwarfs came home from working in the mines. They were surprised to see their cottage door open. Doc, the leader of the dwarfs, stepped inside and gasped, "Who is this girl sleeping in our beds?" Grumpy grumbled, "Who does she think she is, coming into our home uninvited?" Just then, Snow White woke up. She sat up and saw the 7 dwarfs staring at her. She was frightened, but quickly explained, "Oh, I am so sorry. I got lost in the forest and found your house. I didn't mean to intrude." The dwarfs looked at each other and then at Snow White. Happy, one of the friendlier dwarfs, smiled and said, "It's okay. You can stay with us if you help with the housework." Snow White's face brightened with relief. "Thank you. I will cook and clean for you. I promise to be a good guest." From that day on, Snow White lived happily with the 7 dwarfs. Every morning, the dwarfs went to work in the mine, and Snow White stayed home to clean the house and prepare delicious meals for them. The dwarfs loved her, and they became like family. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the evil queen asked her magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror replied, "Snow White, living with the 7 dwarfs, is the fairest of them all." The queen was furious. She clenched her fists and screamed, "I must kill her myself." The queen disguised herself as an old woman and went to the dwarf's cottage with a basket of poisoned apples. She knocked on the door, and Snow White opened it. "Hello, dear," the old woman said sweetly. "Would you like to try this delicious apple? It is fresh and juicy." Snow White smiled and said, "Oh, thank you, kind woman. It looks very tasty." She took a bite of the apple and immediately fell to the ground, unconscious. The evil queen laughed wickedly and said, "Now I am the fairest of them all." She left Snow White lying on the ground and returned to the castle. When the dwarfs came home, they found Snow White and were very sad. They tried everything to wake her up, but nothing worked. They could not bear to bury her, so they placed her in a glass coffin in the forest. They kept watch over her day and night, hoping she would wake up. One day, a prince was riding through the forest and saw Snow White in the glass coffin. He was struck by her beauty and felt a deep love for her. He knelt down and kissed her gently on the lips. Suddenly, Snow White opened her eyes. She looked at the prince and said, "What happened? Who are you?" The prince smiled and said, "I am a prince. Your true love has broken the spell. Will you marry me?" Snow White's heart filled with joy. She looked at the 7 dwarfs and said, "Thank you for taking care of me. I will never forget you." The dwarfs hugged Snow White and wished her happiness. Snow White and the prince returned to the kingdom and got married. They lived happily ever after, and the evil queen was never seen again.